The signal should not have been answered. Let me be clear about this, because you humans have a terrible habit of ignoring obvious warnings. When we broadcasted that message across 17 star systems, we were not being subtle. The transmission literally began with the words "do not respond" in 43 languages, including 3 forms of interpretive dance for the species that communicate through movement. Humanity responded in under 6 hours. I am Veklor, senior advisor to the Galactic Confluence, and I have spent the last 200 cycles trying to keep idiotic species from accidentally triggering extinction-level events. Usually, I deal with curious younglings who poke at temporal anomalies or trader guilds that think antimatter makes a great party decoration. But humans? Oh, they are something special. The day the transmission arrived at Earth's orbital stations, I was enjoying a perfectly adequate meal of compressed protein cubes. My assistant, a nervous fellow named Grint who molts when stressed, burst into my quarters trailing scales like confetti. "Sir, the humans," they answered, Grint wheezed. I dropped my cube. "Which humans?" "The mining colony on Phobos." "Please tell me it was just some bored technician." "No, sir." "Earth." Official channels. The United Terran Council sent a formal greeting. He pulled up the holographic display, and there it was, beaming across subspace in cheerful blue letters. "Hello. This is Captain Mira Okonkwo of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We received your message. What seems to be the problem?" "What seems to be the problem?" I made a sound that Grint later described as somewhere between a deflating balloon and a dying swamp creature. "Here is what you need to understand. The signal we sent was not an invitation. It was a quarantine notice. 3 months prior, our deep space monitoring stations detected something emerging from the outer veil, that lovely stretch of nothing between galaxies where sensible beings never go. We call it the silence. Not because it is quiet, though it is, but because every expedition we have sent there has gone silent. Permanently. Whatever was coming through was big, old, and radiating energy signatures that made our best scientists weep into their data tablets. So we did what any responsible coalition would do. We marked the area as forbidden, sent warnings to every known civilization, and established a perimeter. Then Captain Mira Okonkwo decided to say hello. "Get me a direct line to Earth," I told Grint, already reaching for my emergency stimulants. This was going to be a long day. The communication delay was agonizing. 12 minutes for my message to reach Earth, 12 minutes for their response. I spent the time reviewing humanity's file, which kept growing longer every year. First contact, only 80 years ago. Technological development, alarmingly rapid. Diplomatic incidents, 73 and counting. Notable characteristics, curious, stubborn, apparently allergic to self-preservation. When Captain Okonkwo's face finally appeared on my screen, she was smiling. Actually smiling. "Advisor Veklor, pleasure to meet you. Sorry about the confusion, but your message was a bit unclear. You said not to respond, but then you broadcasted on an open channel, which is basically asking for responses, right?" I counted to 10 in 4 different languages. "Captain, the message said do not respond in very explicit terms. We included pictograms. We included mathematical proofs of danger. We included a very simple diagram showing what happens when you poke ancient cosmic entities." Right, we saw all that," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "But here is the thing. You never explained what the actual threat is. Just lots of ominous warnings and danger symbols. My superiors figured you were being overly cautious." "Overly cautious," I repeated flatly. "Yeah. Like when someone puts a danger, high voltage sign on something that is only mildly shocking. We deal with that stuff all the time. So we thought, hey, maybe the Galactic Confluence is just being dramatic." Grint made a soft whimpering sound behind me. "Captain Okonkwo," I said, speaking very slowly and clearly. "The entity approaching from the outer veil has destroyed 6 different precursor civilizations. It consumes matter. It bends space-time. The last probe we sent toward it transmitted 3 seconds of data before it ceased to exist, along with the entire cubic light-year of space around it." Her smile faltered. "Oh, that is actually pretty serious." "Yes. But you are containing it, right? With the perimeter. We were containing it. Until your response beacon lit up like a supernova and drew its attention directly toward your solar system. The color drained from her face. We did what? Your greeting included your coordinates, cultural information, and an open invitation for dialogue. Essentially, you rang the dinner bell and provided your address. For a long moment, there was only silence on the line. Then Captain Okonkwo straightened her shoulders, and I saw something shift in her expression. Something that should have comforted me but instead made my stomach clench. How long do we have? She asked. At its current speed? 17 days until it reaches Earth's outer system. Right. Then we had better get to work. Getting to work, in human terms, apparently means ignoring every single piece of advice given by species who have survived for millennia. Absolutely not, I said for the 14th time that day. Captain Okonkwo, you cannot simply fly a ship at the entity. That is not a plan. That is suicide with extra steps. She was standing in what humans call a war room, surrounded by at least 20 other officers, all of whom looked far too calm for people facing cosmic annihilation. Behind her, tactical displays showed the entity, now officially designated Target Omega, crawling through space like a malignant tumor with tentacles. Advisor Veklor, with respect, running away has not worked for anyone else either, she said. You said 6 civilizations got wiped out. What did they try? I pulled up the historical files. The Krell Dominion attempted diplomatic contact. The entity absorbed their entire negotiation fleet. The Sorrow Collective tried quantum weapons. It fed on the energy. They all did the same thing, interrupted a younger human, some lieutenant whose name tag read Torres. They either talked or shot. Nobody tried anything weird. Weird, I repeated, feeling a headache forming behind my optical clusters. Yeah, you know. Unconventional. Unpredictable. Torres grinned like this was all some grand adventure. Humans are really good at weird. This was true, unfortunately. Humanity's file included an incident where they had resolved a trade dispute by challenging the opposing delegation to something called a hot dog eating contest. They won. The treaty is still in effect. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, though I already regretted the question. Captain Okonkwo's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. We are going to confuse it. Over the next 9 days, I watched humanity do what humanity does best, which is take a terrible situation and somehow make it both better and worse simultaneously. They did not build weapons. They built noise. Every ship in the Terran Fleet, from massive carriers to tiny mining vessels, positioned themselves in a sphere around Earth's solar system. Then they started broadcasting. Music, mathematical paradoxes, soap opera episodes, cooking shows, arguments about sports, poetry, encryption keys, random number sequences, and something called meme compilations that made absolutely no sense to any non-human observer. It is designed to process information, Captain Okonkwo explained during one of our daily briefings. Every civilization it encountered probably sent either coherent messages or coherent attacks. We are sending chaos. Contradictions. Stuff that does not parse. This is insane, Grant whispered beside me, shedding scales across my console. Yes, I agreed. But watch. Target Omega had entered the outer system, its massive form distorting space like a stone pressing into fabric. Our sensors showed it slowing, its energy patterns fluctuating in ways we had never recorded before. It was hesitating. It is working, Lieutenant Torres shouted, pumping his fist. The thing is confused. Do not celebrate yet, I warned, but even I felt a flicker of something dangerous. Hope, perhaps. Then humanity deployed Phase 2, which they had not bothered mentioning to me beforehand. 300 volunteer ships broke formation and flew directly at the entity, each one broadcasting a different frequency, a different message, a different type of electromagnetic noise. It was coordinated chaos, beautiful and terrifying. What are they doing? I demanded. Giving it indigestion, Captain Okonkwo said calmly. The entity reacted. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, engulfing the first wave of ships. My heart sank. But then something impossible happened. The The ships emerged from the other side, intact but altered, their hulls covered in strange markings that pulsed with stolen energy. Hull breaches on 40% of the fleet, someone reported. Casualties? Okonkwo asked. 0. They evacuated to support vessels before making the run. Because of course they had. Humans are reckless, not stupid. Usually. The entity convulsed, its form rippling like disturbed water. The readings made no sense. It was trying to process what had just happened, trying to absorb the information it had just consumed, and finding only contradictions and nonsense. Now, Captain Okonkwo said quietly, every ship in the human fleet fired simultaneously, not at the entity, but at specific points around it, creating a cage of intersecting energy beams. They were not trying to destroy it. They were trying to contain it, redirect it, push it back toward the void. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. Target Omega folded in on itself, compressing down to a fraction of its size, then shot back out through the dimensional tear it had emerged from. The void sealed behind it like a healing wound. Silence filled the command center. Then chaos, the good kind, with humans cheering and embracing and doing that strange ritual where they pour liquid on each other. Captain Okonkwo turned to my display, exhausted but triumphant. So, Advisor Veklor. Still think we should not have answered? I looked at her for a long moment. At the celebrating crew behind her. At the tactical displays showing their battered but victorious fleet. Captain Okonkwo, I said slowly. Humanity is either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Possibly both. We prefer to think of ourselves as optimistic, she replied. The Galactic Confluence will need a full report. And we will need to discuss proper protocol for cosmic threats. Sure thing. We will send it over. Fair warning though, it is going to include a lot of references to ancient Earth military tactics and at least one section about psychological warfare using cat videos. I have no idea what that means. Good, she said, grinning. Keep it that way. As the transmission ended, Grint turned to me, still molting. Sir, what do we do about them? I considered the question carefully. Humanity had just defeated something that had destroyed civilizations millions of years old. They had done it with nonsense, bravery, and an apparently genetic inability to recognize impossible odds. We, I said finally, make very sure they stay on our side. Because the galaxy had just learned an important lesson. The signal was not for humans. But they answered anyway. And somehow, we were all better off for it.
Hello everyone. If you are enjoying this video and finding it helpful, don't forget to support our channel. Please subscribe to our channel, press the like button, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos. We regularly upload amazing, informative, and entertaining content just for you. Your support means a lot to us and motivates us to bring even better content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and welcome to our growing community.